The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of this station and/or Confederation College.
My name is Bob Goujon, and I have a couple of news announcements I'm going to make first, but just to introduce our guests for the evening, I'm speaking with some people from the Blue Sky Community Healing Center, Cindy Crow and Velda Megan, and we're going to be chatting about the Blue Sky Lodge. But first, before we got into that, I thought I would just share with people, there's a couple of events coming up, and I wanted to make sure that people were aware of them. There's the Walking with Our Sisters, which is actually a series of events, I guess. There's an exhibition at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery, and it's running from September 19th to October 12th. And so it's in conjunction, I gather, with a series of events. Some of them seem to be taking place at Lakehead University, I gather, in Finlandia Club, the Sister Margaret Smith Center, for example, and some at the gallery. So just wanted to make sure that people were aware of this coming up with a variety of events, so people might care to attend some of these. And then as well, there's going to be a fall harvest, which I gather, you've mentioned that you were involved with that in the past.
Yes.
So it's been going on for a few years?
Several years, yes.
Okay. So it's coming up this Saturday. It's part of the Aboriginal Cultural and Support Services program at Lakehead University. So it's this Saturday. That basically we're looking at the top half of their poster, and now we're going to look at the bottom half of the poster. And so there's going to be bannock making, moccasin making, smoked fish, a medicine walk, tea making, sweat lodge teachings. So you were part of this at some point,
yes,
providing some of the activities. So a beading circle. So again, there's the connection with the Walking with Our Sisters. So the fall harvest has some connections with that other event, and you can take part in the painting of the teepee. So just a couple of events I wanted people to be aware of that are just around the corner. But the main topic for this evening is going to be the Blue Sky Community Healing Center, and so I haven't been there.
You'll have to come, Bob.
Yes, I will. No, I realize that. But that's my segue into saying I have no idea, other than what I read on the website, of the various things that you're involved in. So I'm going to be asking the questions from that vantage point, and so hopefully viewers will appreciate that, and we can inform them a little bit about the Blue Sky Community Healing Center. So maybe just the story of how it came into existence. How long has it been about?
So the center itself, which is located on Victoria Avenue East, so we're in the block between Brodie and May Street. So on the east side of the Victoriaville Mall, that's where we're located. If people knew where the college's Learning Cafe was before.
Yes, I was there.
Okay, so we're
we're
directly next door.
Oh, okay.
So we're at 512.
Yeah,
so if
I
you
don't know how long that lasted. That was just a couple of years.
I'm not sure. A couple years.
I happened to cycle over there, and
so when we were moving in, they were moving out. Sadly,
okay.
And it's too bad because I think we would
have been a nice connection.
We would have had a nice connection there.
Yeah. Well, I think they were trying to get a footprint for the college on the street, so to speak, and with a bit of an Aboriginal theme to it, and draw people into it, and get them started on a program of getting into the college.
So maybe we're continuing that work.
That's right.
In our small way.
That's right.
Maybe that's what we're doing.
That's right. So just how would you, the proverbial person from another town or Mars or whatever, lands and knocks on your door and they say, well, so what is it that you folks are doing? How might you describe it?
So, we do a whole variety of things. We're very holistic in nature. So we do, different things representing or part of the medicine wheel. We have community activities. So community activities, I would say, as an example, would be like an open mic or a dry dance.
So you have space for that?
We have 3,600 square feet.
Oh, okay.
So we have lots of space.
Right.
I would like, now that I'm there, I've been there a little over a year now, I would like double of that. But yeah, we do have lots of space.
Now, is that space always open, or you basically run events from that space?
So I would say Monday to Friday, fairly steady between 9 and 5 p.m.
Okay.
So the door is always open for people to come in.
And if I was to come in, just visually, what might I see? Would I see tables
So
and chairs?
when you walk in, it has a very long nature to it, similar to what the Learning Cafe was like.
Right.
We purposely opened that space up because we are essentially a teaching lodge. So it is the Wabe Maingan Teaching Lodge, which means that, I'm the lodge keeper. I am responsible for that space. And so what you see is very high ceilings, 18-foot ceilings, and it is literally painted like the sky. So when you walk in, you have a sense of blue sky, and the floors are hardwood floors. So it does really feel like you are inside of a lodge. So that's a nice space. And you'll see the 4 colors of the medicine wheel, just like in our logo, hanging from the ceiling above. And so that symbol is always there for us, so that we remember our foundations and we remember that it's all about unity. It's all about unity. So we want to welcome all the cultures into our lodge. And that's the big teaching around Grey Wolf. That is what
Right.
Grey Wolf teaches us.
Right. Well, I'm not significantly informed about the medicine wheel, but one of the things that I've observed is everybody's on it.
Yes.
There isn't anybody
Absolutely.
who's not on the medicine wheel. Is that a fair description?
Absolutely. And so as an example of another community event, on Tuesday, it's Thursday today, on Tuesday, so 2 days ago, we had 2 shamans there from the other parts of the earth. We had Juan Flores, who's from the Peruvian Amazon. He runs his own center in the jungle. And then we had another shaman there from Argentina. So how cool was that to have these very special guests in our lodge? And we had 100+ people inside the lodge. The place was hopping, and we had it set up like an open mic. And Velda was running around doing all the working, making sure that everybody had everything they needed. Yeah. And we also had a drum. We had Shadow Creek singers there, and so they provided.
I'm not familiar with them, so who are
a
they?
young group. It's a young drum group. Really, very contemporary. They had people laughing. I mean, it was great. So we had sort of a mini powwow. So people were participating in that, but also we wanted these other cultures to share their songs with us. So if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see some of those videos from those very special Spanish singers. So, I mean, how honored were we to have these indigenous people from around the world singing in our lodge. It was a phenomenal evening. And I wanted to share, too, that all 4 cultures were present that night. And when we realized that, we were just like,
Well, maybe
we've done it. We've done it.
Right.
We've done it.
Well, maybe for those who are not familiar at all with the medicine wheel, which your reference to the 4s, it's as you say in the logo.
Yes.
The 4 colors, in this case, on the outer rim.
Yes.
The fact that the medicine wheel really is representation of a variety of aspects of the natural world of which we are all a part, I guess, the rhythms and cycles of the natural world.
Absolutely. And I mean, the way that we describe it at the lodge is that we're all tribal people. Mm-hmm. Every single person on earth originally came from a tribe. Mm-hmm. And so it's time for us to acknowledge that. I love it in Australia. They refer to it as one mob, the kangaroos, right? And
okay.
it's a fist they demonstrate.
Right.
And I see it like that. I absolutely see it like that. And so the teachings from the wolf are they're very strong in that aspect, that we are to love and be kind to everyone.
Well, maybe just linger on the idea of like the 4 directions and the 4th. So again, just so that people appreciate how much is woven into the medicine wheel. Now, I gather not all Indigenous communities necessarily have the same teachings, right? It's
Correct.
Important to recognize the diversity of teachings. But still, I gather that the medicine wheel is, in its various in its various forms, it does appear in a number of indigenous cultures.
Yeah, so it's been my experience that going around the world, that visiting other indigenous groups, we're all very similar.
Right.
We're all very similar. And I think it was in Australia when I realized, oh my goodness, we're all tribal people.
So in terms of the wheel itself and the 4 quadrants, and there are the 4 directions, so you have east.
Yeah, so the eastern direction on our medicine wheel that we follow is that recognizes the Asian countries, and the red in the south would be ourselves, the indigenous people, and then the black to the west, that would be like the South African countries or African countries, that type of thing, and then the white in the north would be Caucasian people.
But there's also on the wheel the association of these 4 directions with the seasons. The
Absolutely.
cycles of the east
Absolutely.
would be the spring, and south is summer, and the west is fall, and the north is winter. And these are the cycles of the seasons, but they're also the cycles of all life forms.
Absolutely.
So we all have our spring era of our personal lives, and the summer and the fall and the winter. So it's that idea of the natural cycles as being powerful and meaningful, and including, I guess, in terms of the individual, it's sometimes understood to be the physical, the emotional, the
Exactly.
mental, and the
Exactly.
spiritual.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's what we focus on, right?
Right. And sometimes when I've kind of looked at Western culture, and I've sort of said, well, if you look at the Western culture from the point of view of the medicine wheel, all the emphasis is on the physical and the intellectual. And the Western culture struggles somewhat. In other words, we've got lots of toys. We're really good at intellectualizing the physical world, right? That's where the emphasis is. So we've got lots of technology. And we'd sort of, the Western world would like to approach the emotion and the spiritual from the same point of view. Doesn't do so well.
Yeah.
Because the emotions, I gather, are not just physical things, and spirituality is not just more physical stuff. And the Western world seems to kind of run out of gas at that point and just flounders around, or just says, "Oh, let's look the other way." In other words, just let's keep playing with the toys, the physical toys. So obviously, I gather that's not the approach of the medicine. The medicine wheel is to take you back into the natural rhythms and understandings and experiences of Mother Earth, and there, I gather, the emotional and the spiritual live a more fruitful existence than they do, and if I might describe it.
And it's all about, at least the focus at Blue Sky is all about spirit.
Hmm.
It's all about spirit. It's about spirit, and it's about, our thought process, managing our thoughts, monitoring our thoughts. Because as we know, our thoughts create our reality, or the way that we look at it is our thoughts create our illusions. So, how do you want to live your life? And that is how you think. And we've seen, even in the short time that we've had the center open, we've seen so many successes. And Velda is absolutely one of the, I would refer to as a graduate. I don't know what other word to use, but a success. Yeah. And so, she started out as a participant or as a guest, and here she is, and now she's a facilitator at the lodge.
So what drew you to the lodge?
We were just talking about that when I came in here. I was trying to figure out what drew me there was. I remember seeing a flyer like that, Blue Sky flyer somewhere in my travels, and they did angel card readings there, and that's what drew me there. And I always thought, okay, my guardian angel drew me there for a reason. So I got comfortable there, and I grew, I considered myself as a client at the beginning, because I was interacting with Cindy and the other facilitators there, where I came off the street, and so I grew to love other people and learn to love, and that's where I discovered my own spirit inside of me. Yeah. So it's amazing.
Right.
And I would never ever sit here and talk about, myself like this,
Right.
to sit openly. But because of Blue Sky, I've come a long way.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, she's going to make me cry.
No, don't cry.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the experience of Blue Sky? What I mean, you explained what drew you there, but
Blue
what
Sky is, when you first walk in there, people are, I could see that because I'm on the other side now. Like, people are really nervous and they're scared, and that's how I felt. But when you get comfortable there, look, I'm starting to
Yeah,
tear
no,
up.
Getting
That's
emotional
okay.
too. Yes, me too.
Well,
I'm getting emotional.
well, but we have an emotional side to ourselves, and it is.
Yeah.
Well, the
And
thing is
that's part
that
of
it's
the medicine, and that's part of the wheel. You get emotional.
exactly yes.
Yeah.
Well,
They talk about the four, there's physical, emotional, and what's the other two?
Cultural and
Yeah,
intellectual. Yeah.
mentally, and
Yes.
so and it's based on that.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I was never too.
Well, and again, I'll just use the label Western culture. I'm not quite sure exactly what that is, but well, it's kind of curious. On the one hand, I do wonder to what extent it allows us culturally to deal with the emotional side of our experience. Either it's weird extreme stuff on YouTube, and the weirder the better. That is how extreme, which seems more to just trying to get attention than anything.
Yes.
Be a momentary celebrity on the screens, right? But really engaging one's emotional side of our experience, and I guess one of the things that intrigues me is the idea of having a cultural environment that it's hard for us to navigate these things on our own. So I guess I am kind of curious to what extent traditional Native culture offers an understanding or experiences, teachings, activities that allow you to nurture that side.
So, if I may, then the to me, and Velda can offer her input as well. To me, what the Native culture, Anishinaabe culture, provides for us there at Blue Sky is it provides us with the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So it provides us with the guidance, and it provides us with the foundations for what it is that we're doing there. And it all reflects back, and I can hear some of the elders echoing in my head right now. It reflects back on the basic teachings. Love, kindness, caring, and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Basic principles
Right.
of an individual. And so that is what we follow there. That is what we promote. And then, yes, of course, there's the 7 grandfather teachings. So, perhaps at some of our gatherings, not all of them, but some of them, we would start off with a smudge, or we would start off with a prayer. But there's always this perspective of being centered there. That's there, and you're always going to feel supported.
Yeah.
So even though you might be having a really bad day, personally, you walk through the doors, and it's as if you go through some kind of a sheet of water. It just cleanses you, it lifts you up, and you're able to focus on what it is that you want to focus on. And so I have to believe that it's the energy within the lodge, it's the spirits in there, it's the ancestors.
And this is what
They're
the
all
lodge is
carrying-
referring to, right?
Yes.
The lodge is not just the...
No, it's not just the building.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely
right,
not. It's
right?
the community,
lodge is
it's
the
the
community.
people, it's the spirits that are guiding us. It's everything.
Mhm.
Because, again, we're all one.
Mhm.
So it's all about that. And I don't know if Velda has something to add to that, but yeah.
What I was gonna say is, I remember when I was trying to tell you that when I was on the other side, I remember when I was walking in there, these people made me feel comfortable, and that's what it always brought me back.
Mm.
And now, I want to be able to give that back. So that's why she says I'm a graduate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess we can look at that from both sides, which is on the one hand, there's the lodge, which creates a sense of community, but on the other side, where you were I gather, experiencing a lack of a sense of community.
Yeah.
Right. And you spoke earlier before we got on the air about the idea of cultural sensitivity as
Yes.
part of the project of the lodge, and just understand what that means for you.
Yeah, so I mean, for agencies, industry, businesses, I'm recognizing that within Thunder Bay, I can see a lot of the larger businesses now are hiring Anishinaabe people, and I'm very happy to see that, because it's time that the city of Thunder Bay acknowledges that population of people. There's some obscure statistic out there saying that there's only 12% of Native people in Thunder Bay. And I always say, like, when's the last time you went to Walmart?
Right.
When's the last time you went to the Superstore or Silver City? Give me a break. 12%? No. It's time that the city
Right.
recognizes that, we have many northern people migrating to Thunder Bay, and for a variety of reasons and a variety of necessary reasons. Whether they're coming for medical services or education, or perhaps another thing, maybe they're there for rehab to get themselves sorted out. Maybe they're there because they've been incarcerated.
Or
there's
maybe they're
many,
just visiting their traditional
Yeah.
territories.
there's many, many reasons why they're
Right.
coming, but
Right.
people need to start acknowledging that. And I've noticed, I'm very proud of our Chamber of Commerce. I've noticed that they're starting to pick up the ball there a little bit too.
Well, and I guess in terms of cultural sensitivity, you might think, well, okay, well, don't be rude, right? Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a history of racism right here, and so don't be rude to Indigenous peoples. But I'm assuming cultural sensitivity goes further than right.
Exactly.
And what I'm trying to get there
Exactly.
is cultural understanding and appreciation.
There's cultural understanding, and also what we offer are tips. So when I speak to industry and businesses, I'm helping them with the how-tos of how to do business with the Aboriginal community and be successful with it. Not just getting your foot in the door, but actually creating working relationships. It's all about relationships. It doesn't matter where we're looking or what we're doing. It's all about relationships. And so how are we, I'm thinking Scott's in my head here now. How are we creating right relationship here? And so that's what our cultural sensitivity workshops do.
Just for the viewer, Scott is another member
Scott
of your...
is on our board of directors, and he's one of the facilitators, yes.
Right. Now, can you give us a bit of what the tips might be, just in general? Like, in
Sure.
other words, what would be some of the key things that people who...
Sure. So one of the main things that I always suggest to industry is that if they're looking to bring a product or a service to the Aboriginal community and they're not quite sure how to get that started, I always recommend that you begin with a meal. Food is the common denominator amongst all people. So you arrange for the meal to be served. You're paying the caterer of the community. You're renting the hall. You're taking care of all of those financial needs. But by providing an opportunity like that, then you sit down and you talk with the people socially.
Right.
So you talk about your fishing, you talk about your grandchildren, you talk about your education, you talk about everything except what you're there to talk about. You don't talk about your agenda.
Right.
And God forbid, don't bring an agenda with you. There's nothing worse than plunking this agenda on the table and expecting that you're going to follow this timeline. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So those would be two main suggestions I would give you.
Well, being a bit of an academic and doing a lot of reading on these in the past, I mean, I read about the fur trade, right? And one of the interesting things that I came across which was a perennial problem for the Europeans, and not so much like the voyageurs, but the business side, the guys who were really trying to make money off of the directors and especially like the stakeholders back in England, and the communications often from England or London was, well, you got to shut down this gift giving at the front end because it's too expensive, or there's all this gift giving, and then the letters would go back. Well, we can't. They won't. They simply will not engage. Meaning Indigenous peoples. Well, we can't trade with them if they don't. They just refuse to trade. We have to do the gift giving, and in other words, you have to form the relationship first.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, then there's no trading to be done.
No, nothing's going to happen.
So, and I mean, I'm interested in that for a number of reasons. Simply, partly the difference in the cultural understandings, but as much as anything, what's really happening?
Yeah.
Because that really, my understanding is that those protocols eventually show up in treaty making as well. And there's almost a kind of a legal basis and implication of that for the Constitution of Canada, right? And in other words, the relationship between Indigenous peoples and Europeans, if you like, or non-native peoples, is not primarily commercial. It's not a commercial contract. And so that when you're doing the gift giving, you're not forming a commercial relationship. You're almost in, I gather, and you could speak better to this, and correct me if I'm wrong, by all means. You're entering a kinship system.
Yes.
And you're, in other words, what you were speaking about, in forming a relationship. And so I'm kind of curious about that aspect of it and what goes on in the laws.
So,
to the extent, not that you have to talk about the fur trade in the Constitution, but
I'd like to mention our elder, or our sort of guide since the very beginning. So the Teaching Lodge has been around since 2005. Wabe Mayengan has been around that long. And Norma Fawcett, who's also a member of Lake Helen, I'm a member of Lake Helen as well, she always taught me that when you're going to meet with government people or any other businesses or anything like that, you were always to bring gifts with you. That was just what I was taught. Norma never comes to a meeting empty-handed. She usually has bannock, homemade jam, and some little beaded gifts that she will hand out. That's just the way it is. Yeah, so it's very much a practice.
But it also signifies, I gather, a kind of, as I say, it's you're forming a gift-based relationship as opposed to a commercial. I'm going to get something and you're going to get this.
That's right. It's not about that.
Right.
She's not giving you something expecting that she's going to get something in return.
And more
That's
than
not
that,
why
that you're
she's
going
doing
to
it.
profit by that
Yeah.
exchange.
Yeah.
That the profit motive is what's guiding the exchange, which is precisely, as I say, what the directors were getting the nasty messages from London saying, this is cutting into our profits. Stop the gift giving at the front end. Because why? That was the primary thing, was the exchange of goods for the purposes of profit. Whereas if in fact you're forming a gift-based kinship relationship, and that's really the primary thing, then then that, I guess, that changes the relationship.
Yeah, and I think industry really needs to consider this. As I said, I've seen successes, and that's how it happens, is the relationship is established. Once that relationship is established and you now have a working means between the two groups, well, then you can go on to other economic development projects. But nothing's going to happen until you have that human conversation with each other. That has to happen first. Has to happen. And you know what? It's far better to invest that time and energy in the beginning. Do it right the first time. Don't try and do it right later, because maybe it's too late.
Or you've got to,
then there's
ground
trust.
to make
Then there's trust issues. So you establish that right from the beginning. You do that right from the very beginning and invest that time and energy. It's not going to take long. I assure you, it's not going to take long.
So do you sense that there's more receptivity to that now than there, say, was?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a little sad that it's because they don't have any choice anymore.
Well,
But, it's still good that it's happening.
right.
It's still good that it's happening.
Well, I'm assuming at some point that the profit motive culture will, as you said, the numbers are shifting.
Well,
So-
no, and if anybody's interested, and I'm going to appeal to the financiers people out there, check the TD Bank websites. They've got some great research that they've done. And I believe that one of their papers from 2011 illustrates that by the year 2016, the Aboriginal community will be bringing in $32 billion into the country. That's more than 2 Atlantic provinces. So, hello,
Mm-hmm.
let's start paying attention to that. You know, those are great opportunities.
Right.
Let's get on it.
Right. Now, some of the activities that you have tours and ceremonies, or I guess I'm sorry, that's in the future. That's coming, not too far away. So
Not too
Yeah.
far away.
maybe you've got about 5 minutes or so left.
Maybe
Okay.
we'll talk about that.
Which one? This program.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we want to
Share
talk
that.
about the program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, let's make
share
sure.
that.
Okay, let's get because you have to leave in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to leave shortly. So we have a new program starting up in October the 6th. It's going to run for 10 weeks. It is called A New Way. And it's called A New Way for several reasons. It could be considered an alternative for somebody who may have been entering the drug rehab program. Or perhaps it's someone that is experiencing anxiety or depression. It's also for executives out there who are looking for some inspiration. It's for a variety of things. That's what it's about. It's about inspiring you. It's about helping you to realize, you know, what you want to do with your life. What actually drives you? What is your passion? And then guiding you, supporting you, mentoring you to actually get to that point. And yeah, it might not happen in the 10 weeks, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is I guess would it be fair to say this is kind of within the tradition of the Vision Quest?
Oh, for
Absolute- yeah,
sure,
so-
for sure.
Just to-
So recognizing the holistic process again.
Mhm.
So each week is designed so that you're touching on all 4 aspects of yourself.
Right.
So we don't miss out on that.
Mhm.
And it's also, it's about self-discovery.
Mhm.
Because we have to listen to ourselves. If we're not listening to ourselves, then we're not satisfied with our lives. If we're not satisfied with our lives, then, you know, we could be experiencing social issues, health issues, financial issues. I mean, the gamut is large.
And again, I guess the idea is that it's the whole principle is the idea that, well, why do this on your own? That there's the idea of the lodge is the idea of the community and the idea of the tradition.
Of course, because
So you have those
when
you
you're
have 10,000
together,
years of experience that are
when you're together, the energy is amplified.
Yeah.
And when you're together, you're feeling supported. And so Velda's already shared with you how that worked for her. You know, we all have our own personal stories about how that energy supported us and you know, we were able to become who we are. I was not raised as an Anishinaabe person. I was raised as a Roman Catholic.
Mhm.
And I struggled my entire life. It's only been in the last 10 years I now know who I am and what my purpose is. And I don't have those emotional issues anymore. I suffered with emotional illness. It was terrible. My children were raised with this crazy woman.
right.
And now, because I do have that support and mentorship and the Anishinaabe teachings, I have that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I learn on an hourly basis, right? You're always learning. But because I have that guidance, I feel free.
Right. Well, and I have to admit, my feeling is that, unfortunately, given 150 years of colonialism, that I, as many other people who grew up here, as I like to say, at the mouth of the Kaministiquia River, it should have. 150 years ago, we would have been hearing Ojibwe every day.
Yes. Yes.
We would have been hearing the teachings every
Yes.
day.
Yes.
We would have been immersed in
Yeah.
Ojibwe culture. It would have been that fort over there, the old fort, which is
Yeah.
based on 1815. In 1815,
Yeah.
it would have been immersion in Ojibwe culture for everybody,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
because that's what
That was survival.
that was what was here.
That was survival.
And I guess my feeling is that, well, I kind of have a treaty right to that.
And that's another thing. Every single Canadian is a treaty partner.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Yes.
I guess, and when I say have a treaty right, I mean I have a treaty right to understand what the chiefs coming to the table were inviting me to participate
Yeah.
in, and I didn't get to hear it when I went to those, to school.
No.
Got my, for want of a better description, colonial education.
Yeah.
So I feel we have some ground to make up there, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's coming. It's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel it's moving along. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're going now.
I know. Sorry, the time flew by.
That's right, it did. I'm watching the clock, and yeah, you've got 5 minutes to your cutoff time. So,
Okay.
so we'll take a little break, and two of you can go to you're off to do.
Yeah, we're doing an intentional manifestation workshop at 7 p.m. at Blue Sky.
There you go. So if
Yeah.
you got 25, Cindy Crow and Velda Megan, you have 25 minutes to get there, along with any of our viewers who want to run out the door and join you. So thank you very, very much for coming in, and we'll have to have you on again to
I would
talk
love
about
to.
this,
Would
talk
love
about
to.
this some more. Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Miigwech.
You get a chance to try many different things, anything from editing to camera work to directing and producing. So you can really find that area that really suits you, where you can really stand out.
The staff is great. They've all been in the industry for countless years. They're really supportive, just the perfect people to guide you into the future of your career.
Being in the program, you make lots of lifetime friends with, older, younger people, and it's just a great experience.
Right from day one, you're pretty much hitting the ground running. You're given projects that you probably didn't think you'd be doing until the last semester, and really you're having a great time doing it.
I've learned so much in this program, and I'm going to take a lot away from this.
So we're going to kind of go monologue here for a few minutes. Our guests, Cindy and Velda from the Blue Sky Community Health Healing Center, had to run away to an event. So we've got a few minutes here to just kind of, I guess, recap the fact that there's a couple events coming up I wanted to mention, and they're happening this coming weekend. One is the walk with our sisters. Now, it seems to have a number of events, one of which has already taken place, which I didn't realize. Unpacking Settler Colonialism was a teach-in that took place, I guess, September 12th, whichever day that was. Maybe it was the weekend at Lakehead University, which sounds like something I would have liked to have attended. But there's other things coming up. A conversation with Walking with Our Sisters going to take place here tomorrow. And the opening day ceremony is taking place at 12 p.m. at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. Then there's going to be film screening and community discussion at the Finlandia Hall. That's on September 20th. I guess that's Saturday, if I got my days right. Sunday, the traditional moon, skirt, and two-spirit teachings from 2 to 5 at Sister Margaret Smith Center. And then on September 28th, which I believe is a Thursday, I'm not sure, actually. I may be wrong there. September 28th, I'll just go with the number. Community Bead and Read, 1 to 4 at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. And then into October, there's going to be a sharing circle at the gallery. There's going to be another teach-in. This is going to be art and decolonization. I might like to check that out. That's going to be at Lakehead University. Then on October 11th, there's going to be a coffee house and silent art auction. I just realized I don't know what a silent art auction is. quiet art that doesn't talk, a silent art auction. People bid, but they don't say anything. They just... Anyways, silent art auction at the Finlandia Club. And then another, I guess it finishes up with another teach-in. This is the Anishinaabeg Presence moving forward, and it's going to happen at Lakehead University. But there will be at the Art Gallery an exhibition, I gather, that's running, again, from September 19th to October 12th. So we'll have to get over there and find out some of the things that are going on. And I know Nadia Kurd is the curator over there. Maybe we can get her in here and chatting about the art a little bit. And then the other event that I had mentioned was the Fall Harvest, which is coming up this weekend. And so it's happening at Lakehead University and features bannock making and moccasin making and smoked fish, medicine walk, tea making, sweat lodge teachings. And it's all sponsored by Lakehead University and the Aboriginal Initiatives program over there. If you want more information about that, I'll give you the number, which is half cut off. Sheila Pelche Demara is at 343-8085. So those are some events coming up. And at the moment, we're, the show is only, I guess this is our fourth show, so just a month old. We've had a law professor on. Karen Drake was the first show talking about treaties, and Brenda Small and Joy Asham have been on Joy's been on a couple of times. But we've got some various feelers out there. It's looking pretty good that middle of October, Chief Georgianne Morisseau, I'm hoping, is going to come on the program. I've got feelers out to Ottawa Regional Chief of the AFN, Stan Beardy. There's been a fair amount of discussion of late and some announcements. In fact, at the Madadizi student orientation, the Assembly First Nations had a table there, and they had some pamphlets or whatever discussing the idea of the assertion of sovereignty. And I'm very interested in having that discussion about the concept of and the reality of and the legal basis for the assertion of sovereignty by Indigenous peoples in, of course, their traditional territories and spiritual homeland. So I've kind of put out feelers that perhaps it would be nice to have the two chiefs, Georgianne Morisseau and Stan Beardy, and we could have a discussion about just precisely what it means for Indigenous communities at the moment to be asserting sovereignty, why that's necessary, why is it important. The expression assertion of sovereignty, of course, goes back to the whole European claim to Canada and the idea that the British asserted sovereignty at various points of time after the defeat of the French. Although when we were discussing, Karen Drake and myself, the law professor from Lakehead University, that, as she said, the English imperialists beat the French imperialists, but they didn't defeat Indigenous peoples at that point, and were told so by Indigenous peoples whenever it came up in those early days. So the idea of the assertion of sovereignty is the very basis of the legal authority of the Canadian state, whether that's the federal or provincial or municipal forms of governance that we kind of take for granted nowadays. So it'd be very interesting to have some of the chiefs come in and speak to the issue of the assertion of sovereignty by Indigenous peoples, what that means, and more precisely what the consequences are for our understanding of the current state of governance in Canada. There has been some recent judicial decisions, specifically the one with the I know I'm not going to get the pronunciation quite right, the Silcut decision out in British Columbia just recently in the last couple of months, where a very large parcel of land was recognized by the Supreme Court of Canada as being traditional, legal, sovereign Indigenous territory. This has raised a bug in the machine, a bug in the Confederation constitutional program. It's the proverbial can of worms. It's the contradiction that may, have consequences down the road for generations. There are outstanding sovereign issues associated with Indigenous peoples all across the country, especially in British Columbia, because, of course, there's a great deal of untreated territory. Treaties moved, as people might be familiar, there's kind of number of phases of treaty making. The first phase is the so-called peace and friendship treaties, which took place generally on the East Coast in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and areas like that. And then we have the pre-Confederation treaties, which, for example, here in Thunder Bay, we have the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. There were other pre-Confederation treaties, and then after Confederation, we have all the numbered treaties, which moved west. So we have treaties 1 through 9 and 10, 11, up into the Northwest Territories to some extent, but didn't quite make it into the full extent of British Columbia. So there are portions of British Columbia especially, and northern Quebec, although we now have the things like the James Bay Agreements, which are a form of treaty making, contemporary form of treaty making. But there's large swaths of British Columbia which are not governed by treaty. So it was specifically to those kinds of territories that the Supreme Court decision was addressed. Now, I'm no legal expert, but there is now the question of, well, what are the implications of that kind of a decision for territories which are under treaty? Because we now have potentially a conflict of sovereignty. And that's in some sense the context in which this assertion of sovereignty by the Ontario regional chiefs in certain parts of the country, there's a competition for sovereignty. And sovereignty, just in case you're unfamiliar, the standard definition is the supreme authority in a territory. That's what sovereignty is. So, so there's some very interesting legal constitutional questions that are now on the front burner, which were, for 150 years of Confederation were pushed to the back burner. And so it's very interesting to see how that's going to play out, and be very, very interesting to have some of the chiefs on and talking about how they see the future on this subject. So there's that. Joy knows some writer, Joy Asham, who's been on the program a couple times, knows some writers who we might be able to get in here in October. And I'm trying to think of who else I've... anyways... But if you have a topic, if you have a guest, you'd like to see and hear them chatting about something you're interested in on the program, just send an email to editor@spirit-canoe.ca. That's kind of, in case you're not familiar, there's what you're watching now, which is camptv.ca, which is where the show is aired live. But there is a website which is hosting the archived programs, spirit-canoe.ca. And there is an email for that website, editor@spirit-canoe.ca. So just send an email and let us know what you're interested in hearing us discuss, who you might like to have on as a guest, and we'll see what we can do. So we're pretty wide in terms of topic area. It just has to be something tangentially related to Indigenous issues, and we'd be happy to consider it. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up for this edition of Spirit Canoe. My name is Bob Goujon. We'll be back here, same time, same place, on Camp TV, coming to you from Confederation College, Thunder Bay, Ontario.
I leave it with you, 'cause you know that I know that you know how we do, right? And these are